Kuromukuro Season 2. Now, of course, this will be my complete season review, so there will naturally be spoilers for the entire second season of the series. But if you guys want to check out my review for the very first episode of this season, I'll put a link in the description below for that. Obviously, there will be spoilers for the very first episode, but the way I do my Netflix shows, at least my Netflix anime shows, I'll do a review for the beginning of the season and then just the full season. I did the same for the very first season as well. If you want to check that out, I guess I'll put links in the description below for both of those too. But this was a really good season. I think this really kicked up what I liked about the very first season, and it added a ton of stuff to it. You know, we have more explanation for what's going on. I think pretty much every question that I had in the first season is answered by the end of this. Now, this season does add its own questions. There's really only one question that it really adds that I feel didn't get a complete answer, which was really what the deal was with the Yukina head that we got to see when Yuki, or Princess Yuki's head, when Yukina was on the ship. And I was like, okay, well, they explained a bit about, you know, why Konosuke was considered a traitor and how he may or may not be one of the ogres and stuff like that. But it turned out that both he and Princess Yuki actually, well, he didn't really choose, he was still knocked out. But they chose to become wearers, and that is what, you know, kind of made them like ogres in a sense. So the big question I still had was like, all right, well, what did that mean for like the Princess Yuki head that was like halfway built? Like, was that a clone actually being made? Because they mentioned that, but I was like, is that what was really happening? Was that another clone being made? Because that didn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. So that was like the one thing I felt wasn't fully answered, or maybe I just missed it and I didn't get like that one line that I was looking for. But that was like the one question this season created that I felt didn't get answered, which is fine because they did it with the first season and then they answered it this time around. But I really liked it. I liked the answers that we got. Some were really cool, some were not so cool because we do find out, unfortunately, what happened to Yukina's dad. And I think a lot of us may have had the same suspicion. Obviously, I'm just assuming. But my guess, of course, is that, like, initially, I thought he was Cell. I figured it was her dad, but in a costume, and maybe he couldn't reveal that it was him because it would, you know, anime stuff, there's some reason behind it. And so I was like, I feel like that's what the case is going to be. And then it turned out that it was actually just another character. Like, it wasn't her dad in disguise. He just had to watch because, you know, we get the backstory later. And so after that happened, I was like, okay. We eventually come to the episode where he explains what's going on. And of course, this is before we find out that he actually died. And I was like, okay, so this is a guy who, oddly enough, he's a lot like the kid who has the camera. Like, I don't remember like a lot of the side character names. I really only remember like 3 or 4 names in the whole show. But he was a lot like the kid with the camera, where he's doing all these experiments. He knows that there's an ogre in the forest, and it's like, all right, well, he doesn't like deer, and he doesn't like this type of food. And so he's like, well, maybe they eat human flesh. So he was going to like cut a piece of his arm off. And so Cell comes up behind him like, hey, I guess I'll have to eat you then. And he should be freaked out, but he's just excited. And Cell's like, this dude is kind of weird. So they end up becoming friends, and that's how he learns that the ogres are going to be coming back and stuff like that. And so it was very interesting. You know, they bond. And it was such a simple way to kill off a character. Because I thought for sure, you know, initially I thought he was Cell, and it was like, nope, that's actually a different character. And then I thought, okay, well, maybe he was kidnapped. Maybe something happened where the ogres did show up, but it was like a small little fleet or something random, and he was taken. And you know, he was turned into one of the villains, because we didn't really know what was going on with like the king character. That was the only one, you know, out of the Ephidorgs I can never remember if it's Effie or Epi. He was the only one that we never got to see the face. So I had like some theories running, like maybe that's what happened and he was turned evil or something like that. And then it was like, nope, none of that actually happened. He just left one day and he died on the mountain because there was a snowstorm. And it was such a simple death for that character. And it was just really crazy because I think it's not just anime. I think it's with most shows where it's like, oh, a character is gone. They've been gone for a super long time. And then, of course, you know, he was right about a lot of stuff. You know, the ogre's coming back and there are actually aliens and all this stuff. And it just made sense that somehow he was in space already. Like, that's just what made sense to me. And sadly, that was not the case, and he ended up dying. And I was like, wow, that was such a simple way to do it. He got everything that he wanted, you know, in this ogre, and getting answers and knowing that he was right 100%. And then he just died on the mountain, just walking home. And it was just like, wow, that's a pretty somber way to do it, but I thought it was fairly well done. But, you know, that's one of the answers that were given for this season. Some of the other stuff, like I said, with Princess Yuki and Konosuke, as far as them being able to regenerate and stuff like that, we get that answer because they were turned into wearers. And when you're turned into a wearer, I don't know if you guys heard that, but my dog just sneezed. But when you're turned into a wearer, it changes your body physically. So that's why they're almost deemed immortal. Like, the nanotechnology is so powerful and so advanced that it basically makes them immortal. Of course, they can die, but if they get a little chance to heal, like Konosuke, he was stabbed right through, he should have been killed. And then it was like, all right, I'm good. It was like an episode and a half. I don't think it even took the full second episode. And it was just like, I'm good. And he was walking around, and it's like, how are you able to heal? It wasn't that he was actually an ogre. It's that it was the nanotechnology that was put into his body after he and, well, mostly Princess Yuki, because he was still knocked out. But after Princess Yuki talked with Cell, and it's like, all right, if that's what it takes in order for us to fight back, then changes. So I thought that was pretty cool. And that was another one of those questions that came up, because I was like, okay, well, once again, just like with sort of the clone head thing, I was like, her body, there was a part, like the part where she actually died, her body looked just like Cell's. And I was very curious what that meant, because we, of course, haven't seen, Konosuke die yet. But if he died, like, at the end of the series or whatever, would his body change colors? Like, would he change and look like Cell? Because that's who it looked like. Like, she looked just like them. Like, it was her in her dress and everything, but her body was completely red. And I was like, okay, that's very interesting. What does that mean when the characters die? And, like, why does it physically change them? Like, is the other dude, the American guy, who, once again, I can't remember his names, but he ends up becoming a wearer as well. So does that mean that when he dies, he'll end up looking like Cell? Or, what's the case? Because some of the characters, or maybe all of the characters that were there were actually clones, because we found out at the end pretty much everyone was on the ship. But it was just really interesting. I was like, all right, well, with them being wearers and changing their bodies physically, because the guy can't even smoke anymore, because it was like your body becomes more sensitive. So does that mean they physically change when they die? Like, I had a bunch of questions. I was like, that's the one thing, that was that other question that I felt didn't really get answered. Like, it introduced a new question. And I was like, how does that work? Like, that could be as simple as that. Like, if once they die, their bodies physically change. And maybe it's because Cell was the one that was there, so they were able to already, be wearers. And maybe that's why she changed into looking like them when she actually died, because maybe they used their, their DNA to change her into a wearer. It's the same thing in the season. Like, when the guy was like, make me a wearer, Cell was the one that had to do it. So maybe that's why, like, when they die, they kind of revert to, like, that last new bit of DNA or some, random fake science answer. It was just the little mystery that was added in. But definitely enjoyed that, that flashback, getting that answer as to what the deal was with Konosuke and why he was considered a traitor. And it was because the ogres assumed he had to have been one of them and betrayed them because he was able to use the Kuromukuro, but it was just the fact that Cell made him and Princess Yuki into wearers. So I thought that was cool that they explained it in that way. I was like, okay, his memories weren't altered or anything like that. It was just naturally he was changed, and that's it. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And then, of course, we have really, like, man, there's something going on. I think it's a bunch of birds, like, fighting outside the window or something crazy. But we get to, like, the last, I want to say 4 or 5 episodes. And that's where, because I think, honestly, this season was great from beginning to end. I don't think there were, like, slow moments, but I don't think the season as a whole ever had, like, this part of the whole season I felt was, like, really slow or something. I think everything from beginning to end was fairly well done. It starts off strong, of course, with the beginning of the season, Konosuke being injured and everyone freaking out, like, what the heck is happening? Like, this woman really does look like Yukina and stuff. Bunch of questions there, and then the stuff with Cell coming in and explaining what's happening, and then those last couple of episodes was like that grand push. Once the city got, like, covered in that dome, I think everything just picked up exponentially. Like, it was already fun, and then I think it just, like, kicked into overdrive after that. Like, it got, like, kind of crazy, because we have, like, even before that, it got a little crazy, because, of course, once Yukina was captured, that's really, I think that was, like, the main catalyst for how everything played out for the rest of the season. Because if it weren't for Princess Yuki's partner, like, hating her and trying to kill her on the dam, nothing would have happened. Because after that point, that's when Yuki and Yukina end up switching places. Like, Yukina ends up being captured when they do, like, the hot springs thing. So she gets captured and taken up to the Epidauric ship. And it's like, okay, we got Yuki, and, she's wounded or whatever, so we have to heal her. That leads to her getting all, Yukina actually getting all these answers when she escapes the little pod. Her also having to run away from the other woman because she's trying to kill her. And naturally, that leaves Princess Yuki on Earth. So we have the characters switching places. Konosuke had a pretty good I think it was like 2 episodes where he had to figure out what's going to happen. It's like, do you side with this woman that basically you've been searching for ever since you woke up, or do you side with the people that have given you this new home? And I like that element, and I think they spent about 2 episodes on it, and ultimately he was like, I want to protect her, but I know I have to save Yukina from this ship. And I love that. Like, he does break her out, and of course there were a couple other people helping him out. It's like, hey, don't worry, we're trying to help you out. You know, they left the doors open and stuff like that, so that he and Princess Yuki could get on the Kuromukuro and actually go to space and save Yukina. That leads to Princess Yuki getting like that video of herself from the past, and that like sent her into like the spiral of trying to figure out who she really is and stuff like that. It's like, man, if that one woman wasn't trying to like kill her friend off, none of this would have happened. Like, she wouldn't have been questioning, you know, Princess Yuki wouldn't have questioned like who she truly was and stuff like that, and she wouldn't have ended up siding with all the main characters. So it was kind of funny how that one little bit of betrayal set off like the rest of the season. But it set off some great stuff. The city gets covered. The episode where the base got taken over, great episode. I really love that because that's when we first see like those little bugs going into people, and it was kind of intense. Like, people were just getting taken over. They're dropping left and right, and the base gets taken over. That was the episode where the butler guy, he seemingly dies. And so I thought that was, you know, a small emotional moment. He, of course, does come back later on. I was fine with that. I know I could easily see some people being bothered by that, because I know some people hate when that sort of thing happens, where it's like, oh, they have this emotional moment to kill a character and then they just bring them back later. I think when it's a lesser character, it works better. Like, when it's a main character and you have such an emotional attachment, and then it's just like, psych, and they bring them right back, I can see that being an issue. I still don't mind it. Sometimes it depends on, you know, how it happens. Like, The Walking Dead, I think, is a great example of that, where it happens like so many times with one person, it can become an issue later on, where it's like it constantly happens over and over again. But when you do it like one time, I think it works. And especially with it being a lesser character, I think it was like, oh, it's just an emotional moment, and it's not like, holy crap, that's emotional. It was kind of like really reserved, like, oh, that sucks. And it was just a great moment. And then he comes back later, which I also didn't realize how much time had passed until he came back, because he had like the full beard. I was like, oh, it's been way longer than I thought between like some of the episodes. I just assumed it was like, oh, it's like a couple of days. I was like, no, that's like maybe a couple weeks, like at least like 2 weeks, because he had like the full beard. He was like completely like clean shaven for the most part. And I'm like, that takes time. Even if your hair grows fast, that takes some time. That's going to take more than like a week. It probably takes more than 2 weeks, really. I mean, because he had the full thing. I'm like, that was, like, they don't really say it, but with the way he looked when he left, you know, or like died, and he was clean shaven, and he comes back with like the full beard and everything, I'm like, that's almost like a month. Like, that took some time to do. Like, even if you grow it fast, like I said, even if you cut it in half, that's still 2 full weeks. And I honestly was thinking, oh, this is like a couple of days they've been planning this. Maybe I just missed them talking about how long it had been. But I was like, oh crap, it's been way longer than I thought watching these, you know, couple of episodes. So it was kind of funny when he came back, and I was like, oh dang, it's been a super long time. But really love those two, when they, you know, the episode where they lose the base and the episode when they get it back. But everything with them in the dome was great. And of course, you know, them basically winning at the end. They, you know, take the base back, they beat all the villains. The king eventually comes down in his ship, and it was super awesome. I think that's my favorite one, even above the Kuromukuro. I think just the design of it was super cool. When they do like the little recap thing at the end of the episode, showing off all the different ships. I didn't realize, I forgot what they actually call them, so I'm just calling them ships. But you know, the horses. But when they showed it, and it was like spinning around the little 3D model, and it had like those giant wings, I was like, I must have missed that part where he was standing still, because I did not notice that at all, with the wings just like sticking out super far. But it was a really great design. It was like kind of like the Medusa, where it had like a bunch of different blades, but it was more like an actual Medusa, because they were like whip blades and they actually extended really far. So it was like this grand battle where everyone had to team up in order to take him down, because he had, you know, it was just so strong. So I really love that. But they basically defeat everybody. They ultimately defeat the king, but he ends up taking off, and he ends up surviving for like a little bit longer. But they ultimately end up capturing him, because Cell was already on the ship. And so the king is like, you know, he's doing his thing, and Cell just hits him from the back with his sword. And I was like, that was pretty cool. And then he takes the mask off, and he finds out that it's a clone of one of his own people. And I was like, wow, that's not what I expected at all. So everyone gets on the ship, and they find out, you know, about the clone stuff, and that's how, you know, we get some extra answers as to what happened with Princess Yuki, and, you know, exactly what she is and stuff like that. So I thought it was really well done. And then of course that was like, you know, that was like the big fight episode, and you don't see this in anime very often, but every time you get to like a season finale or like a super special episode, they skip the intros. So they have an episode where they skip the intro, just the info comes up, and then it's just like, all right, you get the episode. And it's kind of the same thing with special episodes where they end it and they play the music over the actual episode instead of doing like the full ending. They have like really important scenes that they want to show off. But in this, they did, I think it was the big fight episode, they skipped the intro, and then the next episode, they went back to the intro, and then the very last episode of the season, I think it was the last 3 episodes, so it was like no intro, normal episode, and then the last episode came back, and then it was like no intro again. I thought that was so weird, but it was like, that's how important that fight episode was. Is like, even though it's 2 episodes away from the ending, we still have to take the intro out because there's just so much relevant stuff happening here. So that was just something I wanted to mention because it kind of made me laugh. Like, you never see that happen where you're watching episodes like, oh, there's no intro. It's like that big of an episode. And then I'm like, that's weird. I still have 2 episodes left. And then, of course, the next episode comes along with the intro. And then the final episode comes along, and then there's no intro again because it's the season finale. So I was like, that's funny. You just don't see that very often. But great action episode. And then the episode before the last is where they realize, like, we won. Like, everything's supposed to be good. And then it turns out that not using the pivot stone and not opening it up will actually send, or actually this was in the battle episode, but if they don't open up the pivot stone, then a bigger armada will actually come to Earth in like 234 days or something. So they have to make this decision, like, do we open it now and, you know, kind of take the fight to them, or do we just hold off? Like, what is, you know, what happens? So, excuse me, I love the way they have the episode play out where it's like, all right, Cell is like, you know, they get some answers, they realize that it was a very Gurren Lagann moment, and it was kind of like, okay, we're not the only ones fighting. I have people out there that are still fighting against, you know, the Epidoric, and I thought it was cool. I was like, it definitely makes me think of Gurren Lagann. It's like this grand enemy way, way out in space, and then you have all these other planets and species teaming up to fight this super, super grand enemy. And I was like, that totally makes me think of Gurren Lagann, like going out to fight like this grand evil that's, you know, corrupting all the planets. And I was like, this would be like some secret backdoor sequel to Gurren Lagann or something. They're just on a different planet from those characters. But it totally made me think of that, where it's like they're not going out to space to take on this grand enemy. And so Cell is going, Konosuke is going, Princess Yuki is going, and the whole thing is that Konosuke doesn't want Yukina to go. And in the end, she does decide to, like, you know, they kind of go through the motions of the last 2 episodes of figuring out what's going to happen next. And ultimately, she does decide that she's going to go. And sadly, she doesn't get the chance to go, but Cell, Konosuke, and Princess Yuki do end up going through the portal. And that's when we get our time skip. And we have a 5-year time skip. I figured there would be a time skip. I wasn't too surprised by that, but I didn't expect it to be 5 years, but it does make a lot of sense. So it skips the 5 years. So, of course, everyone's older. We get kind of the montage sequence where Yukina is going into space as well as her friend. Like I said, I'm sorry I suck with names, but the blonde girl who's normally like super calm, she seems kind of more open. It was like half a second. I was like, she seems like she's not like as much as a stickler as she used to be before, and things, you know, have changed in the 5 years. So they're going off into space. We get to see, you know, Yukina's sister and stuff. She's older and stuff. I was like, I always like a good time skip. It's always interesting to me. But we see what everyone's doing. The guy who had feelings for Yukina, he actually does end up in the military. The buddy with the camera, he's like filming somewhere like in the Arctic or whatever. His other friend, no idea what he's really doing. They kind of just showed him writing in a notebook in a cafe, I think. And I was like, that doesn't really tell me exactly what's happening. Maybe he's writing stories. Maybe that's what that was supposed to signify. Her best friend, shocker, is on TV. She's a reporter. So I was like, that makes a ton of sense. They show the school counselor. She's still doing her thing and stuff. And the teacher, he's still just teaching. The admiral is kind of back with the military. The other 2 characters, they seem like it seems like everyone kind of left from the base, except for like very few characters. Because it seemed like the American guy, he's back with the military. His partner with the pink hair is in the military as well, but she was in a totally different segment because she was in a different outfit and everything. So it's like, okay, like the characters have kind of branched out and done their things in, you know, 5 years. And of course, you know, they shoot off into space, and that's leading us into season 3. And, you know, them going to get Konosuke after this 5-year span, Konosuke, Princess Yuki, and Cell, and finding out what's going to happen. Like, what other species are they going to be teaming up with? How are they going to fight the Epidoric off and officially kill them? And I'm excited. I'm very excited for season 3. The show does have a season 3 coming out. I found that out when I was like watching the first season. Like, there is going to be a season 3. I don't think there's a date just yet, but very excited for season 3. I love this one. I just can't wait to see what they do. It's going to be so different because they left the planet. Like, the main 2 characters are officially in space now, and I just can't wait to see how that's going to play out. Like, I'm really excited for season 3. Like I said, I love this one. and I just can't wait to see where they go. But naturally, I want to know what you guys thought about this season, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, your least favorite parts about it. And naturally, I want to know your theories for Season 3, what you guys thought about the ending and them, kind of seemingly taking things into space. I don't know if the whole season is going to be them in space or not. Like, we'll have to kind of wait and see about that. But either way, I'm just super excited, because even if they do go back to Earth, or they find a way to do it, they're going to space. Like, that's a big change for the show, and I'm really excited to see how that plays out. And the 5-year time skip, that's always how you get new costumes and all that stuff for your anime characters. But I'm excited. I'm very excited to see what they do with Season 3. Like I said, want to know what you guys are hoping to see and what theories you guys have about what we will see. My only theory really is that we will get to see Cell's planet, because one of the big things with Princess Yuki was like, I want to go to space because I want to see this planet. Even if they aren't truly my memories, they feel real to me. So I feel like we will actually see his planet, and maybe that'll be like our new base of operations. At least for a time. I think it'll be his planet, just because of how closely attached he is, as well as Princess Yuki is, to the memories they have of that planet. So that's like the one theory I really have. Maybe we'll also get to see the actual version of the Epidor, because so far it's like everything's just been a bunch of clones. So maybe we'll see what they truly look like. That's like the only other theory I can really have. But we'd love to know your theories and just what you guys want to see in general. And of course, I want to know what you guys thought in general about this season. So please comment below, let me know. And of course, thanks for watching.